Hello and welcome to another Stellarian Games video. In this episode, we're going to be looking at how to make another dice box. In this case, we're going to be taking an Apple iPhone box and converting it into this. This is a kind of a fake leather looking box. Slides apart, and it has a chunk of chainmail on the inside, and placed inside of the box like so. You have a place to put dice, and they'll cascade down through the chainmail and into your dice box. Easy to store, carry along with you. Makes for an interesting little prop at the table side. It also has some lights to light it up inside. There's a little switch along the side, and that will light it up, and there's a little light behind the green gem as well. So you'll be able to see some of the finished product with the lights on, as well as just how we make it. So let's go to the table and see how this is done. Okay, to start this project, I'm using some green anodized aluminum rings and made a patch of chainmail using the 4-in-1 method. Then I'm using a fairy light control box and opening it up and using the holes in the box. They come with actual little screws, and I decided to put those screws in through the box so that I could attach it in and have it screwed in so I could pull it out if I needed to change batteries, things like that. Made a little hole for the light switch as well so that that could be operated from the outside. I'm cutting out a hole in the top. This will be the hole where the dice enter the dice tower. I'm just using some chipboard and creating the cascading bouncing effect for the dice box by hot gluing those chipboard elements in, and then trying to figure out how the wiring for the fairy lights would actually work, and putting in some more chipboard to kind of create a little frame in front of it, as well as creating a little slant piece. That'll be the chute that bounces the dice out into the dice box itself. So these are just the slanted pieces that will house the chipboard that will form that bounce pad. Now I'm creating some framework for that bounce pad because I didn't want to glue it in. I made this frame and created a little a backstop on it so that I could put in magnets and glue in magnets to the box and to that bounce pad. So if I needed to change battery on the fairy lights, I could just pull that bounce strip out and access the little fairy light control box at the bottom. Now I'm just creating an insert. This will be the back side of the chainmail section, but it's also going to be the front face of the actual dice tower. I poked a hole through the back of the box because I wanted the light to stick out the back. Now I'm just measuring up the chainmail to see how it would hang and what kind of frame that I could use around that. I'm using more chipboard as a riser on that little frame board, or that backboard that I had made earlier. This riser will just be the separator that will hold the front frame in place, which is going to be kind of the surround around the chainmail. Just using some white glue with that chipboard, it really glues quickly and very sturdy. I'm cutting out that same size frame, and then I'm going to figure out how much of a gap that I want to leave, just measuring that out, and then cutting out that frame. The chainmail will hang behind that frame inside of that little piece. Now before I get any further, I masked off the inside of the box with some masking tape and put some craft paper, and I'm going to spray the inside of the box black so that way it is ready to be assembled once that's put together. The outer frame I'm spraying with a gold spray that'll just give it a nice, somewhat metallic look. I'm using this soft black kind of rubbery craft foam. This is used for the fake leather appearance on the outside of this box. Just measuring out the outer dimensions of the box and getting it ready to glue onto the iPhone box itself. I'm poking in some holes, measuring out basically 1/4 inch holes on each of the edges and using a leather punch to punch through and create just kind of an opening that I can use to sort of simulate a stitching later on to make the leather look really vibrant. Using some hot glue to attach that foam, just putting that into place, gluing each of the sides. And I'm using some tin foil and roughening up the edges of it and using a heat gun to use that tin foil to texture that craft foam. Not only textures it, but it also sort of vulcanizes it and makes it smooth like a leather look. I printed off some little stencils of some Celtic knots and used those to imprint onto the leather as well to give it a little bit more of an embossed feel. I used a toothpick to run through the chainmail and then hot gluing that onto the front side of that frame. Then adding some glue and putting in the back of that frame. Remembering to poke the light through to the other side before I glued it into place. And then I'm folding all of those little fairy lights into place around the edge of that interior box. Just kind of folding them back and forth, making sure that there'd be some lights in a couple different places, and then hot gluing all those lights into place and setting the chainmail on the top. Then I had to add a little bit more fake leather to the back side of the iPhone box, cutting out a hole for where I wanted that light to stick through, adding the tinfoil texture, adding another stencil. I'm coating the whole exterior of it in a brown, including the black iPhone box. It kind of gave it a faux wood look on the box itself, but the rest of it I wanted to look more like leather. So just using raw sienna, I believe, to coat this and give it kind of a leather look. With that texture of the tinfoil, it really had a nice textury feel to it, which is pretty cool. But I wanted that texture to really pop, so I added this black wash. Once the wash was dry, I'm using some tacky glue and some string to poke in and create that fake stitching along the edges of the leather. Once that was complete, I added some clear matte Mod Podge just to protect the exterior surface a little bit more, including all of that string, but also just give that leather a little bit more of a coated protection. Now I'm using some really fine wire and very small gold beads to create kind of a surround for the green gem that's going to go on the back side of this that covers the light. Just adding some hot glue and adding that surround and the green gem over the top of the light. And there's the finished product. This was a kind of an interesting little project. I wanted to experiment with the fake leather exterior of this craft foam, and I'm happy with the result, but it's a little bit tricky to get the stencils quite right. But overall, this is a fun project, and it gave me a nice dice tower that has some neat lighting effects. So I hope you liked this project. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.